Hello everyone, Singularity here, bringing you another game on the ladder, in the Gold Division ladder. I'm playing down here as the Red Zerg. My opponent is jamesjam, playing the Blue Terran in the top right corner of Xel'Naga Caverns. I realize I've been forgetting to say the actual map name, despite the fact that most of you probably know the map name. It's just good form that way. So once again, well, you can read it yourself at this point. jamesjam, one of the few players I've played against who actually says anything at the beginning. Okay, well, here's a confession for you all. I've stopped offering the good luck, have fun at the beginning, because I've run into so many people with bad manners on the North American server. I don't play on any other servers. I'm just an average gold player. And it's just so many people with bad manners. And by bad manners, I mean really just trolls, really. Not just not saying anything, but really being outright insulting. So if that applies to any of you out there, bear in mind, bad thing to do. Just don't do it. Now you can see me here kind of dancing around trying to kill the SCV that was building the barracks. Actually succeeded, but that doesn't delay it very much. What it does do, however, is bring him down one more supply, force him to build one more SCV. Well, from what I saw, I was assuming, hey, looks like it's going to start out as a standard build. I've got the gas coming in at what would have been 15 supply or 14 supply or somewhere around there. The barracks finishing up. There's no second building. Probably going to wall off with another supply depot over here, and getting the orbital command a little later than expected. So I'm just going to go with my usual 14 pool, 14 gas. Sure enough, I was right on that one. Now, your SCV here, Terran players, you place an SCV here, build an engineering bay, but don't finish it. What this will do is it'll actually force the Zerg player to kill it before he can actually get an expansion. Because otherwise you can just punch the SCV. The standard reaction of the worker is to actually run away, and then right away build the hatchery. So you end up not really delaying it at all that way. Now we've got jamesjam building his factory right away, and finally got this overlord arriving in position. You want to get this overlord to take a look at the base around the 6 or 7 minute mark, depending, of course, 5.5 to 7.5, depending on what league you're playing in, I guess. But yeah. As you can see, my drone actually did punch the SCV. The SCV ran behind the minerals, and then the drone had a chance to just build that hatchery. Also, Terran player, or Terran players, Protoss players, Zerg players, it doesn't really matter what you're playing. When you're running away from Zerglings, don't go on the creep. It doesn't matter how many waypoints you set. You go on the creep, and you have Zerglings chasing you, you're gonna die. Or at least your worker's gonna die. Now we got the tech lab researching Infernal Pre-Igniter, and if you watched the last video, you know how fond I am of those. But it's as legitimate as anything else, so hey. Now you got the reactor coming onto this barracks over here. I'd like to point out, some people I see get a lot of barracks and not put any reactors on them just because they want to go mass marine. Well, it becomes more cost effective to have the reactor if you're gonna build more than 2 marines, because it takes 50 units of time to build the reactor, and that's the same amount of time that it would take to build 2 marines, one right after the other. So in the time it takes to build a reactor, you would have had 2 marines. In the time it takes to get your first round of marines, you would have had 3. In the time it takes to get your second round of marines, your reactor is now on par with a plain old barracks at 4 marines. anything that you now build from here on, from that barracks, is faster than it would have been from just the barracks. So consider how soon do you want to make your push. If it's going to be within the four Marines from the barracks, make the reactor, because you'll get them faster that way. If you're going to be doing it within the 1st or 2nd Marine, make the Marines, then make the reactor. Simple as that. Now there might be a little more to it that I'm not seeing, but that's what I see. Now jamesjam over here is actually moving with a medevac over here to put a drop in the back of the base here. Now at this point, jamesjam's actually, dare I say he's ahead? Well, he's got a bigger army. Bring up this nifty thing here. His army is significantly bigger. But on the worker side, he's not really ahead. He's keeping up, but he's not ahead. Remember that Terran mules count for much more than just one SCV. But he's on 1 base, and I'm on 2. Now I actually see, with this Overlord, I see these coming in. There's the Infernal Pre-Igniter is researched, and so I'm going for a speed leak surround as much as I can. But I've also got these Banelings coming in. I'd like to point out real quick, Banelings are not light units. Banelings are biological, and they're neither light nor armored. So Hellions, pretty ineffective. But anything that's got damage bonuses versus anything except biological, which I think there's only the Archon that gets that. Incidentally, another unit that doesn't have anything, it's just psionic. So, just worth remembering that one. However, they also have fewer hit points than a Zergling, and a siege tank will one-shot it no matter what level of armor upgrade it has, as a siege tank will do 35 damage, which is significantly more than the Baneling has hit points. And that's before any kind of upgrade on the siege tank's part. Anyway, we got Mutalisk kind of hovering in the back over here, just getting ready to move into the base. Now he knows I have Mutalisks because I took out his dropship with them, his medevac. I'm sorry. And I figure he's probably anticipating these Mutalisks, and I'm probably going to need a little more than just 5. Sure, they one-shot an SCV at 5, but if there's a missile turret or Marines or anything like that, it's no good. Now just worthy of note, you probably want to take a different path with the second drop, otherwise you run the risk of something like this happening. The medevac is spotted by these Mutalisks and is quickly taken out. Naturally, this leaves the Hellions a little bit in a bit of a tough spot. But I see that they're heading in toward the base, and I decide these Mutalisks better book it back. Right away. And with the extras, I'm able to get in here, and quickly deal with these Hellions. They're able to kill maybe 1 or 2 drones and a few Zerglings. This was a very ineffective attack. Also, these spine crawlers will keep the Hellions from running in completely freely, but it won't stop them from getting a bunch of kills. Because remember, the Hellions can still focus fire at the drones, despite the fact that attack moving will automatically go after a unit that is attacking them if they can fight back. So in this case, the spine crawlers or the Queen. The Queen being another unit, biological psionic, no light, no armored, which means that there's not too many units that get bonus damage against her. Looking back at the units tab, you can see that my economy has flown way ahead of his. You have quite a discrepancy in the income, and a bit of a misclick on my part. I actually moved here on the mini-map, and I thought I saw a building or two. What I didn't see was this horde of Marines. Now Marines, that's exactly what you want against Mutalisks, because Vikings, they're okay. They'll do 20 damage minus any armor, because Mutalisks are light. But the thing is that Mutalisks, the more Mutalisks there are, the less effective an equal number of Vikings will be. Now the reason for this is simple. Mutalisks, when they attack, will hit multiple Vikings. And as such, with the Vikings not having any splash themselves, they just don't have the kind of firepower necessary to take down a large group of Mutalisks. Marines, on the other hand, they have a very good attack speed. With stim, that's even better, because they attack almost twice as fast. And even if a Mutalisk kills one or two of them, the overall damage output doesn't really change that much. And with the Mutalisk's less than impressive attack speed, kind of 1.2 compared to a Viking's 2 and a Marine's 0.86, you find that the Marine attacks almost twice as fast as a Mutalisk. So it doesn't look like much, but especially if you can get the combat shield upgrade, which if you're going to use a lot of Marines, you really should get. It's something that jamesjam here is kind of forgetting, is he's not getting any of the upgrades for his Marines. He's not getting the attack upgrades, he's not getting the combat shield, he's not getting the stim pack, the ever so important stim pack. So you really got to get these upgrades. Now he clears out the gold here. That's something you generally want to do, because even if you don't want to take the expansion right away, you probably will want to take it later on. Now at this point he's got his second base running, but I just went up and saturated the third base, and if you look at the income difference, it's pretty significant. Now a bunch of Zerglings taking out these rocks pretty fast. Just a little +1 upgrade makes quite the difference in the speed that these rocks are destroyed. Now at +1, the Zerglings are doing as much damage as an unupgraded Marine. But the Marine attacks at 0.86, well, the Zergling at 0.7 is not a huge difference. But later at Hive Tech, when the adrenal glands are upgraded, 0.47. That's almost... it's just a little slower than twice as fast as a Marine. Incidentally, the attack upgrade for these bring the damage up from 20 to 22, but against a light from 35 to 39. Consider what that means for the Terran player. 43 and then 47. You better have the combat shield, or at least level 3 armor upgrade on your Marines, if you're going to be fighting Banelings that have the level 3 attack upgrade, because otherwise they're one-shotting your Marines without them being stimmed. And you really want to have the combat shield and +3 armor so that they can survive the first hit when they're stimmed as well. But I mean, anyone who's watched some of these pro replays have seen the Baneling steamroll. Now a lot of Mutalisks make missile turrets kind of ineffective. However, they're all clumped up right now, so a Thor shot in the middle of this causes a decent bit of damage. Now this force right here, this is enough to wipe out almost any number of Marines if the Marines aren't shooting at them. That's what these are for. These Zerglings right here can act as fodder units to prevent the Marines from taking out the Banelings. Now we've got a few Hellions over here. Remember, the pre-igniter's already been researched. And so they're going to be doing a decent bit of damage to the drone line. However, this many speedlings is quite enough to stop these Hellions. From remembering my last game, I'm thinking that attacking these larvae might have been a useful thing to do, considering that a huge number of speedlings just hatched, and there's also these Mutalisks just kind of hanging out up here, kind of recovering from that Thor volley that they received. Now, the Terran is coming in to take this up, and to take the gold expansion. It's actually a good idea, but he probably wants to saturate a little more on his natural. His main is kind of mined out at this point. He really doesn't have much left. but he's got next to nothing in his natural. Now at this point I'm just flying around, scouting around. I didn't intentionally avoid this force, but I certainly would have if I'd known it was there. And now that they're walking on the creep, I know about it. I get those Mutalisks behind the Zerglings. Now as you can see, the Zerglings go first, immediately followed by the Banelings to just take out the Marines. That's all the Banelings are really there for, is the Marines. They get the Mutalisks in, magic box over the Thors so that the Thors don't rip the Mutalisks apart. And then they just go to town on those Vikings. Now no amount of Zerglings is ever a good idea against a planetary fortress. Ever. However, a planetary fortress can't attack air. And I learned from watching a recent replay that planetary fortresses have base 3 armor. If you get that building armor upgrade, that puts them at 5, which makes them basically take less than half damage for an unupgraded Mutalisk. They go from 9 to 4. Needless to say, that'll let them last quite a while. Now I know that my forces aren't anywhere near here. I decide, you know what? To kill time, I'm going to have these drones actually attack the Hellions. And it turns out to be pretty effective. Now I was looking at this, I didn't understand why he was GGing. I thought that he actually had... that he was at least holding his own. But the thing is, his main is mined out. His natural is on its way there, and he doesn't really have much forces left. Then there's this massive ball of Zerglings and Banelings that were moving forward. As soon as these had joined the group, they were going to move in and see what damage they could do. You really want to try to keep up with the Zerg in bases. If you see that he's got a whole bunch of bases, that means he's been macroing up hard. That's your opportunity to take an expansion. Better still, while you're doing one of these hits to take out some of his economy, expand then. At the very least, at this level of play, you'll find that the Zerg will not likely counterattack you if you do enough damage. If you could wipe out this drone line here, don't expect an attack anytime soon from the Zerg. Now since you've invested in these Hellions, get the attack upgrades. Get an army and get some attack upgrades. Mind you, I guess he's got this that I'd completely forgotten about. Get upgrades in general. Upgrades in a longer game will give you such an advantage. They'll give you a big advantage if your opponent isn't getting upgrades. They'll just completely unbalance the game. But if your opponent is getting the upgrades, you don't want to be left behind on that. That's all I've got for you today. Thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.